Hello everybody, Shadow SP here. We are back with more Granblue Fantasy. Today is the day. We're finally going to talk about some more intermediate grid building concepts. Last time we talked about grid building was the basic stuff. When we were back building our M1 grids, talking about things like getting the best weapon, getting different frames for your might skills, maybe even inserting things like stamina or enmity. So those are still important. You gotta keep those in mind. But we're gonna talk about some extra stuff today. So let's get into it. First, by showing something that you didn't used to be able to do, but is it's kind of useful now. I've got some setups for some sample grids in a minute, but for now I'm gonna show something that you didn't used to be able to do. So you can take a weapon that you want to look at and see what its skill values are, and put it in a grid. You didn't used to be able to do it because you didn't used to have this tab for weapon skill boosts where you could see what values you were getting out of a weapon. So here we've got our MC's HP set to 1. So we can see this is what we get maximum from a single Ancient X-Axe, which is kind of a core fire weapon. And 6.5 critical is fairly small, but you also got to remember that when you're adding your booster summons, the best Colossus available right now is going to give you 170% bonus on that, which I believe we can just do right here. So we'll select fire and put this on right here so we can see, with the 170% boost, 6.5 has already become 17.55. And with an extra 100% on top of that, it's approaching 25%. If we had 120% Colossus, it would be over 25%, which would mean that we would need one less to get 100% critical. But for now, we're running with 5 of them for 100% critical. And Ancient X-Axe isn't a bad weapon, so it's fine to run 5. Alright, so over here, I've got a different setup, which is the Tailoring, which is another kind of core weapon. And we're looking at charge attack damage and charge attack damage cap. So this is a weapon that is good at charge attacks. And with more bonus summons from your boost, or more bonuses from your booster summons, you're going to get a higher value on that. So they work. I believe the cap for Kappa is 75%. We're not at that yet because our Leviathan is only at 100% boost. And it's just like our Colossus. The only 2 summons that we have above the normal 3-star level 100 are the light one and the wind one. For preparation for various things. All right, so I've got some sample grids set up. First of all, we're gonna look at water. We're gonna be looking at water and fire specifically because those are the ones that I showed off with the individual weapons. And they're also ones that have kind of 2 different grids that don't really share that much between them. So basically this is at this stage in this account, this is what a water crit grid kind of looks like. 5 Ancient Oberons, some EX weapons, a normal weapon, your Seraphic weapon. Fills out all this stuff. Now if you really, and we'll talk about some substitution stuff later, but if you need to make a substitution, subbing out one of these EX weapons, totally reasonable. Now, if we had Leviathan uncapped, we could swap out one of these Ancient Oberons and have a completely flex slot, which would be pretty good. But for now, we can look at this and see we have full critical, so this is always going to crit, and a lot of HP. We have a lot of HP. That is something that is very key when we're looking at Ancient Oberon. And it's key to make sure that we're never mind. That was we've got a lot of multi-attack also. So this is a pretty good base for a normal attack grid. If we're gonna look at stuff that's good with normal attacks like echoes, you know, damage amplification, you know, attack up, that kind of thing. Now let's go ahead and look at the other water grid. This is a charge attack focused grid, because if you're looking at the other grid that we were looking at, the Ancient Oberon grid, that grid's good at harder content. It's really bad at dealing damage fast. This grid is a lot better at dealing damage fast. So I've got these two Columbas in here. These are weapons from a raid that we have not cleared on this account yet, but they are purchasable in the pendant shop. So I have these two at 0 stars, and they come with the what is it? Crux? Yeah, Crux skill for supplementing charge attack damage. So I've got this set up to be a Bonito support summon for 130% water attack up. And we have a 57% bonus to charge attack damage cap and damage. Now our might is a lot lower. Our HP is almost a third of what it was in the other grid. So this grid is not good at long-term fights, but it's good at bursting down with charge attacks. And also, when we do a charge attack, we have the CA supplemental damage skill, which is going to give us 800,000 damage on top of our cap-upped damage for each and every one of them. And with Bonito, which will fill our entire team's charge bar, something like Relic Buster, which can fill our entire team's charge bar, and water characters that we can bring, like Luria and the Love Live character, we can do a lot of charge attacking in the first 3 turns of the battle, getting 800,000 additional damage on each one of them. Now, we're not going to be doing much after that, because our normal attack damage is very, very low. But our charge attack damage is very, very high. So we're able to get that burst in with all this extra damage just really fast. Yeah, well, there's lockout, but we don't really talk about lockout in, you know, the intermediate grid building stage. So yeah, these two grids are good at different things, and that's kind of something that you have to think about and take care of when you're doing grid building. You have to think about matching your grid to the content that you're doing and the team that you're using. So this grid, good at doing charge attacks on things that are easy to kill, or things that are like joining raids, so that you need to punch something fast and hard, but you don't need to do all the damage yourself. If you need to do all the damage yourself, the more survivable grid will tend to perform better because you take a lot more turns. Basically, the more turns you need to take, the more that you need to start considering survivability. Alright, now let's go ahead and swap things up and look at a different element. We're going to look at fire. Now I'm using the Seraphic as the main hand here. Obviously things can be switched around. So we have the Ancient Exax grid here, which is full 100% critical rate, and it's got some double attack from this Shiva sword here, but its major multipliers are the Omega Might and the stamina. Now this grid has stamina and enmity in it because of the Ancient Exax, and you can kind of fiddle around with how like the HP totals work, but you'll find that like you do the least damage like somewhere in like the 80% range. If you're using like stamina and enmity in like equal quantities. Now this has more enmity, so we're just gonna start dealing more and more damage the lower HP goes. Totally fine, totally reasonable. If we needed to, say, get more attack and less HP, we could swap out the Shiva sword for another EX weapon. So we can swap this out for the Xeno Axe. And yeah, we have more attack, but we lose like 3,500 HP, something like that. Which isn't a ton, but it is enough that you might not be able to survive some things. So this is kind of the standard fire grid that we'd end up being using in, you know, hard content, normal content that we would be trying to solo. And this one doesn't even have any summons set, so our stats would go up even more from this. Alright, so let's go ahead and look at another grid. This one is one that's not a double booster summon grid. The other one was Colossus. This one's Colossus Elemental. So we went ahead and picked Shiva because it's the strongest elemental attack modifier. And this one has it has some advantages because Shiva is a really strong friend summon. So if you want to come in and do a fast Shiva turn, you can do that. If you're going to do a fast Shiva turn, the Alabad isn't as good as, say, something else like the if you have the other Ennead weapon, the Ben Minute, yeah, this one, which would give you 30,000 supplemental damage and an attack boost on the first 8 turns of battle. So it would be a pretty good kind of Shiva turn weapon. Otherwise, though, we're kind of set up for doing charge attacks with this setup. You know, we got some Colossus Canes, we've got the Nilakantha for the HP and stamina, and kind of the rest of this is filled with kind of filler-ish weapons. We've still got no summons, so we'd have higher stats. But something that's of note is that, yeah, we have less HP over here. It's not as big of a difference as it was between the 2 Leviathan grids that we showed off, because one of those stacks HP and the other one doesn't. This one, neither one is really stacking HP. They have more or less the same HP weapons. It's just that the base HP stat on Ancient X-Axe is really high for some reason. So what is this grid good for? It's better if you're going to be doing something like charge attacks. And if we had a second Alabad, we would replace the Shiva Sword with Alabad, and we'd have the same situation that we did with the Water Grid, which is 800,000 supplemental. The difference would be that we don't have a CA damage modifier, and we have a less CA damage cap, because the cap is only coming from the second skill on Alabad, which is up to 15%. So we'd have a lot less cap to work with. But so is the weapon bad? No, it's still really good. And this grid still does the thing that we want it to do, which is charge attack damage. It also has, but the problem that we also have is that we don't have in fire, we don't have Bonito, and our character pool that we have access to isn't really set up to use this. But there are characters in fire, you know, that are in the gacha that are pretty good with charge attacks, that do things like charge their meters instantly, that double attack, or that double activate their charge attacks. And you know, when you have more characters that do this, it's the better that these kinds of weapons get, the better that these kinds of setups get. Alright, so, and now let me talk about another thing, which is substitutions. So, it's no secret. So if you need defenses, you can use Rose Crystal weapons. Just throwing that out there. It is a totally viable thing to do if you need to add elemental resistance. Just replace one of your EX slots. And the other thing is this, the Dark Opus weapons. If you have these, and you should be able to get them, they're not that hard to get nowadays. You only have to do a couple of raids that are kind of not that hard, as long as you're calling for help. This account's going to have some problems with them, but we'll get there. I'm working on it. But these ones, they come with a Majesty 3, which is big attack, big HP. So anything that has big attack when you get these up to 4 stars, anything that has big attack that we have is only at 4 stars. So this would already be better than that, because the Majesty skill has, I believe, the same magnitudes as the Might skills. It just has a lot of HP tacked onto it also. Now these weapons will also at skill level at level 120 have the ability to add a pendulum. And these pendulums would come in over here. Stop. These 4 pendulums at the top here. We have normal attack cap, we have skill cap, we have charge attack cap, and we have chain burst cap. These all are viable in different scenarios, but yeah, you can increase the cap in one of these for this when you're using this weapon, and you use this weapon in every grid. There are only very specific situations where you don't want to use this. The Dark Opus weapons. And it only gets better when you get the 3rd skill, the final end cap. But that's not something that we're going to be talking about too much today. Basically, it's a fixture in your board that you're not going to get rid of. And if we were going to say swap it in for one of these weapons, we'd swap in like the scimitar, swap in the Dark Opus. When we got the second Alabad, we could swap it in for one of these EX weapons, and this grid is kind of, it's charge attack set up. We get, say, extra charge attack cap on the Opus. That would work pretty well with this. If we were to go over here, we would say swap out one of these EX weapons for the Opus, give it skill cap, because our fire team has some skill damage on it. I think that the kind of evergreen key, the evergreen pendulum for the second skill is usually skill cap, because it's kind of easy to cap skill damage, and it's a little harder to cap the other stuff. And the charge attack cap key is worth a lot less. The skill cap key is 50%. The charge attack cap key, I believe, is 15. Alright, yeah, and over here, same thing, swap out one of these EX weapons, get some extra damage in. Over here, swap out one of these EX weapons, you get even more health. And if we had the Leviathan uncapped, we would swap out one of these Ancient Oberons, because we would have full crit with just 4 of them. It's the same thing with the Ancient Exax over here. So, yeah, that was a thing. Now, there's one more thing I want to talk about. But I'm going to have to do something really stupid to do it. I'm going to do it here, and now. I'm going to preface this. Don't do this. Don't do what I'm about to do. So this is Agonize. You may recognize it if you've been paying attention to all of my videos. It's one of the best weapons that you can pick with the birthday weapon tickets, that sort of thing. In fact, because when you went to the home screen, I hate Windows. When you went to the home screen previously, it forced you to pick up it forced you to use the tickets for the birthday stuff. I have 2 fully uncapped Agonize and a fully uncapped Columba in my present box. I'm not going to pick these up. Never going to happen. Instead, what we're going to do here is these Agonizes came from the pendant shop, by the way. We can go to pendants, prestige pendants over here all the way at the end. You see Columba here. Agonize would be below Faceless. These are the Malice and Menace series raids. These weapons here. Columba is... We'll talk about that stuff later. But for now... Nope. Clicking the wrong buttons. Alright. For now, I've bought a fully uncapped one of these, and I'm only 2 away from getting my second fully uncapped one. Now... So how am I going to do this? I don't have the materials required. This is a Hive God Anima from a quest we haven't even unlocked yet, and it's from a raid that I don't think we'll be able to do. They're kind of expensive to buy with prestige pendants. Right, I can only buy 31, and I need 100. What am I going to do? Simple. I'm going to use this Damascus bar that we got with the account. Don't do this, by the way. These Damascus ingots are supposed to be used for uncapping important gacha weapons or gold moon weapons. But this account doesn't get access to those. So I'm going to do this, and anyone wants to complain in the comments? Do it. I want to see it. Now, I'm not, specifically, we're not going to use the gold ingots, because those are still useful for other stuff. Alright, so what we're going to do, we need to... network error, okay. Yep. It's been doing that more often lately. Alright, so I need to look at go for my Agonize. Here it is right here. Hold on. I probably should have done the reserving earlier before the video, but I forgot. Alright. So Agonize. It is a weapon with a small normal attack skill. And a second skill that is something we have not really encountered yet. So let's look at Agonize specifically. So over here we have a weapon with an Omega skill that is unboosted. Nothing's boosted right now. We can see that we're running no support summon and a main summon that doesn't boost any of our skills. So Agonize is going to be everything that's not the Omega attack. So Agonize, it's going to be 12% normal might and 100,000 damage skill supplemental. So every skill hit is going to deal an additional 100,000 damage. Now, Agonize is a pretty core weapon in what we're going to be doing with Dark, because our Dark team that we have access to is very good at skill hits. It's not something that you just jam in every grid, though, because the magnitude on the might skill is low. 12% is not good. It's acceptable if you're taking advantage of the skill supplemental damage, but if you're not, then you really do not want to be using Agonize. So if you're using a Dark grid that's, say, more focused around charge attacks, you don't want to use Agonize. If you use a Dark team that has very few skill hits, say skills that hit hard but no skill damage, but not very many hits, Agonize isn't as good. You'd rather have skill cap, because that'll give you more damage. You have a team that doesn't use skill hits at all. Don't use Agonize. It's not good there. And you have to kind of think about it when you're building your team. You're building your team against... Right, that's kind of the crux of intermediate and further grid building, is you are building a team to counter some content. You want to make sure that your team has enough survivability and your grid synergizes with what your team is good at. And if you need to do things like increase the amount of charge attack damage that you're dealing to, say, cancel V2 omens, you can also build that into your grid, right? I believe we did that with the when we put the Alabot in, that wasn't even uncapped all the way in against Raw. We were increasing our charge attack damage so that we could cancel some of those omens, and it's important. Like these. Keeping a track of kind of what your damage that you're adding is, right? We're putting in this supplemental damage. 2 Agonize is 200,000 supplemental skill damage, and that is the cap. You'll never need more than 2 Agonize. Now, Agonize is a pain to farm because it farms from a raid that people don't do anymore. I mean, people do it. It's just that it's in less quantities. But it's also a weapon that's available on these birthday selector tickets. So like, if you start during these, you can get Agonize for free, and it's really strong. Columba is a weapon that people don't use anymore, but it drops from a raid that people don't do anymore. And but it's on these these selector tickets, so it's really strong because you can select it and just power up your grid that way. Now, Columba, as an aside, its second skill is a really weak EX Might skill. It's like 4% per bow in the grid, so it's not even going to improve that much when you fully uncap it. But I mean, I would like to, because it does make your grid stronger. So let's talk caps for these supplemental frames. There are 3 supplemental frames, right? The skill supplemental. We can display the other one in dark also, which is normal supplemental. So if we look over here, Abydos gives you 30,000 supplemental damage to all hits at full HP. This frame, and then there is the last frame, which is the charge attack supplemental, which we saw with the water grid and the fire grid with Columba and Alabad. So we have all 3 of these supplemental frames. These are important in your intermediate plus grid building. We have to talk about the caps, right? Skill supplemental, 200,000. 200,000 extra damage per hit. It's really good. Regular supplemental damage stacks up to 100,000 per hit. Still pretty good. And both of these work together, so that if you put all of this in the same grid, it's 300,000 extra damage per skill hit. That can lead to very strong skill hits. Just throwing that out there. So that's pretty good for your skill teams. If you're using a team that doesn't use that many skills, you can leave out the skill supplemental. And the 100,000 supplemental is still really good for normal attack teams, which exist. Normal attack teams where you're taking advantage of things like echoes and assassin modifiers, that sort of thing. Guaranteed triple attacks, multi-strike. The weapons that give the supplemental damage that are farmable are they tend not to be as good. Like this is 30,000. If we stack this all the way up to the cap of 100,000, our grid would be bad. So we would tend not to do that. 2 is probably the cap for the number of these that we would end up using. But still, 60,000 supplemental is not bad. And then the charge attack cap for supplemental is 1 million. So it's 1 million per charge attack, and you tend to only use 2 of the 400,000 ones, because a third one is half as effective. It's not impossible to use, but it's not the greatest either. All right. So we've covered things like supplemental damage, the opus, customizing your team and your grid for the content, and that really does cover kind of what we're looking at for intermediate grid building. There are other things to think about, but obviously we're not at the advanced stage of grid building yet. This is just, we are building upon what we have already learned and inserting powerful new tools to help us beat even stronger enemies. And I've got the perfect example for what we're going to do next. I believe in it. I have it in my mind. I don't know if we're going to be able to do it, but I have it in my mind. And I'm not going to show it off yet, because I'd rather show it off in the moment. Well, Yeah, in any case. I hope this has been helpful. I really do. Because I know that it's easy enough to go on, say, the wiki or something and copy a grid and just use it, but if you only do that, you're not going to understand why grids are built the way that they are. And understanding why the selections that are made is important for you to be able to fluidly adjust your own grids to your own parties to counter the content that you're doing. Right? If you're like, I'm going to copy a grid from, the wiki, and I pull the wiki grid into Granblue, but my team is different and it doesn't really take advantage of what the grid is doing, it's not going to perform very well. So understanding why certain selections are made will really help you with being able to make a better grid that will work toward your party's strengths. And also you gotta when you're making your parties, you really do have to make sure your parties are doing one thing, right? There are certainly fights where your parties are supposed to do a lot of different things, but you have to really make sure that when you're building a party that it really is doing something that it is good at. There are Dark specifically, by the way, is really it's kind of a joke that its party it has a party that kind of does everything all at once, and it's really good, but you have to have all the pieces for it. Right. If you're missing those pieces, you're not going to perform as well with, like your agonize or your normal supplemental damage, all that stuff. Well, anyway, I hope that this has been, good listening, and that I've covered the things that people might have wanted to hear. We're gonna get into some more stuff later. We're not there yet. We need to finish what we're doing right now and make more progress in the game, and we'll eventually get to the advanced grid building, I believe. For now, though, this has been Shadow SP, signing out. See you next time. Hope there's a surprise in store.